The nanny realized something was wrong the moment she stepped onto the plane. The seats were too wide. The carpet was too soft. And the flight attendant greeted her by name. "Welcome aboard, Miss Carter." She froze. Because she wasn't supposed to be there. She was just a poor nanny trying to catch a cheap flight home. But somehow, she had just walked onto a private jet. And it belonged to one of the richest billionaires in the country. Emma Carter had spent the last 3 years working as a nanny. She took care of other people's children. Fed them. Helped them with homework. Read them bedtime stories. But her own life was very simple. Small apartment. Second-hand clothes. And a salary that barely covered rent. That morning she had finally saved enough money to visit her mother after 2 long years. So she rushed through the airport with a small suitcase and a cheap economy ticket in her hand. The airport was crowded. Announcements echoed everywhere. Passengers were running to their gates. Emma checked the boarding number again. Gate 14. When boarding started, she quickly joined the line. But in the chaos, she followed the wrong group of passengers. And instead of walking toward a normal plane, she unknowingly walked toward a private jet parked nearby. The security guard checked her ticket quickly without paying much attention. And just like that, Emma stepped onto the wrong plane the moment she entered the jet. Emma realized something was strange. There were only a few seats. Huge leather chairs. A small dining table. And soft golden lighting everywhere. "This doesn't look like economy class," she whispered. A flight attendant approached her politely. "Good afternoon, Miss Carter." Emma blinked. "How do you know my name?" The attendant smiled. "Your name is on the passenger list." Emma felt confused. But before she could say anything, a deep voice spoke from behind. "Is there a problem?" She turned around. And saw a tall man in a dark suit sitting near the window. He looked calm. Confident. And powerful. The kind of man who clearly owned everything around him. The flight attendant answered quickly. "No problem, sir." Emma quietly walked to an empty seat. Her heart was racing. Something about this flight didn't make sense. A few minutes later the plane took off. Emma tried to stay quiet and avoid attention. But after some time, the man from earlier stood up and walked toward her. "First time on a private jet?" he asked. Emma almost choked. "Private jet?" He raised an eyebrow. "You didn't know?" Emma's face turned pale. "I think I'm on the wrong plane." The man stared at her for a moment. Then suddenly laughed. Not in a cruel way, but in genuine surprise. "What's your name?" he asked. "Emma." "Emma. I'm Daniel Hayes." Her eyes widened. Everyone knew that name. Daniel Hayes. The billionaire CEO who owned one of the biggest tech companies in the country. Emma immediately stood up. "I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to." He raised his hand. "Relax." Then he smiled. "This might be the most interesting boarding mistake I've ever seen." For the rest of the flight, Daniel kept talking to her. He asked about her life, her job, her family. Emma felt nervous at first. But slowly the conversation became easier. And something surprised Daniel. Emma wasn't trying to impress him. She wasn't acting differently because he was rich. She simply spoke honestly. After a while he asked, "So you're a nanny?" She nodded. "I take care of children." Daniel looked thoughtful. "You must be very patient." She laughed. "You have to be." Then she asked something unexpected. "Why are you flying alone on such a big jet?" Daniel looked out the window. "My daughter." Emma tilted her head. "What about her?" "She refuses to stay with any nanny." Emma smiled slightly. "Kids can be like that." Daniel sighed. "She hasn't spoken to any nanny for more than 5 minutes." Then he looked back at Emma. "But somehow, you've been talking to me for 2 hours." Emma laughed softly. "Maybe I'm good with difficult people too." Daniel smiled. For the first time in a long time, someone had spoken to him like a normal person. Not like a billionaire. When the jet finally landed, Emma prepared to leave quickly. But Daniel stopped her. "Emma." She turned around. "Yes?" He hesitated for a moment. Then said, "I know this sounds strange, but would you consider meeting my daughter?" Emma blinked. "You mean, as her nanny?" Daniel nodded. "She's had 10 nannies in 2 years. But something tells me you might be different." Emma stood there silently. This mistake, this wrong plane, might have just changed her entire life. And she had no idea that the little girl she was about to meet would open a door to a future she never imagined. Because sometimes, the biggest opportunities in life happen when you accidentally walk onto the wrong plane. Emma stood there for a moment, unsure what to say. This entire day already felt unreal. First she boarded the wrong plane. Then she discovered it belonged to a billionaire. And now, he was offering her a job. Daniel noticed her hesitation. "You don't have to decide now," he said calmly. "But I'd like you to at least meet her." Emma nodded slowly. "Okay. I can do that." Daniel smiled. "Good." A black luxury car was waiting outside the airport. Emma had never been inside a car like that before. The seats were soft leather, and the windows were dark. As the car drove through the city, Emma looked outside quietly. Tall buildings passed by. Bright lights. Busy streets. Finally the car stopped in front of a huge mansion. Emma's eyes widened. "This is your house?" Daniel chuckled. "Yes." The gates slowly opened. The car drove inside. The place looked more like a hotel than a home. Beautiful gardens, fountains, and windows glowing with warm light. Emma suddenly felt nervous. "What if she doesn't like me either?" she asked. Daniel sighed. "That's exactly what I'm afraid of." Inside the house, everything was quiet. A housekeeper greeted them politely. "Mr. Hayes, your daughter is in her room." Daniel nodded. Then he looked at Emma. "Ready?" She took a deep breath. "As ready as I'll ever be." They walked upstairs together. Daniel knocked on the bedroom door. No answer. He knocked again. "Lily?" A small voice came from inside. "What?" Daniel opened the door slowly. Inside the room was a little girl sitting on the floor with her toys. She looked about 7 years old. But the moment she saw Emma, she immediately frowned. Another nanny? Daniel sighed quietly. Lily, this is Emma. The little girl crossed her arms. I don't want another nanny. Emma knelt down gently so she was at Lily's eye level. That's okay, Emma said softly. I didn't want another boss today either. The little girl looked confused. What? Emma smiled. I accidentally got on the wrong plane this morning. Lily's eyes widened. You got on the wrong plane? Emma nodded. And that's how I met your dad. For the first time. Lily looked interested. Really? Emma nodded again. Worst travel mistake ever. Lily giggled. Daniel stood there in shock. No nanny had ever made Lily laugh before. Emma leaned closer and whispered. But don't tell your dad. I still think his plane is too fancy. Lily laughed again. Then she looked at Emma carefully. You're weird. Emma grinned. I've been told that before. The little girl thought for a moment. Then she said something Daniel had been waiting 2 years to hear. You can stay. Daniel felt his chest tighten with relief. Emma looked up at him and smiled. And in that moment, Daniel realized something strange. Emma hadn't just walked onto the wrong plane. She had walked into their lives. And somehow, she might be exactly the person they both needed. The girl who finally smiled. Daniel could hardly believe what he had just heard. For 2 years, every nanny who walked into that house had lasted only a few days. Some didn't even last a few hours. But Lily, the same stubborn little girl who refused to talk to anyone, had just told Emma she could stay. Daniel looked at his daughter carefully. Are you sure? He asked gently. Lily shrugged. She's funny. Emma smiled. That might be the nicest compliment I've received all week. Lily giggled again. Daniel watched the moment quietly. For the first time in a long time, his daughter looked relaxed. Happy. And that meant more to him than anything. That evening Emma stayed for dinner. The huge dining table in the mansion usually felt empty. Just Daniel on one side. Lily on the other. But tonight felt different. Emma sat between them, telling Lily a silly story about a boy who accidentally brought a frog to school in his backpack. Lily laughed so hard she almost dropped her glass. Daniel couldn't stop smiling. He hadn't seen his daughter laugh like that since her mother passed away 3 years earlier. After dinner, Lily grabbed Emma's hand. Come to my room, she said. I want to show you my drawings. Emma looked at Daniel. Is that okay? Daniel nodded. Of course. Upstairs, Lily spread her drawings across the floor. There were pictures of animals, houses, and airplanes. Emma noticed something though. Every picture had only 2 people. Lily. And her father. No mother. Emma felt a small ache in her heart. Your drawings are beautiful, she said softly. Lily smiled proudly. Daddy says the same thing. Then Lily suddenly asked a question. Are you going to leave like the others? Emma hesitated. Then she answered honestly. I don't know yet. Lily looked down. Everyone leaves. Emma gently touched her shoulder. Not everyone. The little girl looked up at her. And in that moment, Emma realized something. Lily didn't just need a nanny. She needed someone who would stay. Later that night Emma prepared to leave. Daniel walked her to the front door. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" Emma asked. "For today." He paused. "You did something no one else could do." Emma smiled slightly. "She's just a kid." Daniel shook his head. "She's a kid who hasn't trusted anyone in a long time." Emma looked back toward the staircase where Lily had disappeared earlier. "She's stronger than you think." Daniel nodded slowly. Then he asked the question he had been thinking about all evening. "So, will you take the job?" Emma thought about the day. The wrong plane. The billionaire. The lonely little girl who needed someone. Then she smiled. "I think I will." Daniel felt a wave of relief. But he also felt something else. Something unexpected. Because the more time he spent with Emma, the more he realized she wasn't just changing Lily's life. She was slowly changing his too.